Hi, I said hi. Elena, up here, Elena.
I'm gonna be doing some cooking. So I'm gonna, of course, I've been using.
You're bringing me cookies?
Yes, can't wait. I love them.
Ask them right above you, then over 2 boxes.
How dare you? So anyway, I'm here. I'm here. I'd love to talk with you one of these days.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna mute right now.
We're waiting for one of our readers, actually, so we'll see what happens. Oh, okay. Good timing. We're gonna applaud the workers. Okay, 7 o'clock, everybody. Yeah. Oh, somebody just dropped something? I don't know what. Okay.
It was Gina in the studio. Stephanie, hi, love.
So we're gonna start soon. I'm just letting people filter in.
Boy, Liz. Hi, love.
I'm hoping Rodrigo Toscano shows up, and if not, I may read a little something. This is our theme music. It's Teeny Weeny Boppy by Free Kitten. I want to thank you all for coming by. This is our next to last show. It's great having you here. The series is about this book. Tonight we have a range of people. I'll read a very short intro for them, but their main bio will be in the chat. First, we'll start. Well, I'll say the order, and then I'll give the full introductions when I introduce them. We're starting with Eli. No, I'm sorry. We're starting with George Quasha, and then Eli, and then Christine Wertheim, and then Rodrigo Toscano. Maybe if Rodrigo doesn't show up, it'll be Edwin Torres, and we'll see what happens. So housekeeping. Let me see. Cell phones should be turned on because they're your cell phones. Bathrooms are in your own house, so you go where when you need to. Oh, this is very important. The nearest exit may be behind you, and this is true in life. So remember that. Okay. I want to start with a short piece. I'm going to share the screen now, so please bear with me for a second. Okay. The piece is entitled, "What Species Me?" I am the change the world. I am the change the world nothing. I am the change the world. I am the change the world nothing. I am the about to be. I am the about to be moment. I am the about to be. I am the about to be moment. What listens you, what waits you, what patterns you, what shapes you, what meets you, what knows you, what forms you, what owns you, what others you, arrives you, what bends you, what hears you, what thumbs you, what moves you, what fingers you, what powers you, what spots you, what traps you, what games you, what smells you, what wants you, perfects you, what knows you, infects you, what serves you, what saves you, what makes you, what breaks you, what enters you, what leaves you,
What sees you, what reads you, what ends you, what needs you. I am perfect, I am re-word. I am enter, I am re-word. I am absent, I am re-word. I am server, I am re-word. I am here, I am re-word. I replicate, I re-word. I dissonate, I re-word. I incubate, I re-word. I salivate, I re-word. I wait, I re-word. I listen, I re-word.
Sorry about the audio there. I think it was breaking up, but so we can talk about that later on. It's great to have a platform to have ideas manifest. One day the technology will catch up to our brain. I'm very excited to have George Quasha start for us. George will be reading in two sets. The first set is now, the second set a little later on. George Quasha's two recent books are Not Even Rabbits Go Down This Hole from Spite and Daigle, and Poetry in Principle, Essay in Poetics from Dispatches Edition, Spite and Daigle. George.
Okay, hi. The first set is a little prose statement, and the second set will be preverbs. So, pandemic poetics, or navigating the shifting forces of social gravity. Last week, Monica de la Torre remarked, in effect, that the pandemic isolation, which is suspending normal social interaction, made her experience a change in time. I understood this to mean that it's harder to get things done in the strange new rhythm and pace. There's a blurring of time and action. With things slowing down while time seems to go faster. And suddenly the day is gone and little got done. Many report distortions in time of one kind or another. Sometimes disturbingly disorienting, sometimes enlightening as to forgotten values and freedom of movement. So here's a thought experiment for getting a grip on temporal drift. Decades ago, NASA discovered that training astronauts to operate in non-gravitational space involves basic changes in physical orientation, re-educating one's proprioceptive, indeed autonomic nervous system, how one stays oriented physically and mentally in space and time. Gravity invisibly defines everything we experience. Think of gravity as the pull toward the largest proximate sphere. On the positive side, it holds us firmly to the giant sphere called Earth, so we don't float away. On the negative side, it's always pulling us down toward the ground. So we resist falling, and in doing so, develop lifelong postural habits, which too often are ill-conceived and inefficient physical patterns with ample muscular tension. Over time, these habits impair body and mind, and betraying their original purpose, bring us down. This keeps surgeons and physical therapists very busy. Enter COVID-19 pandemic. The social world recoils into its figurative corners. Suddenly, unmoored from our social dockings, our calendar gets strangely sparse, inconsistent, and unreliable, and every day is like Sunday. And rather like the blank page, it's subject to writer's block. How to make it up as you go. The imagination, accustomed to marginal status like Sunday driving, is suddenly captain of the ship. Life can go into withdrawal and even get the shakes, if not the DTs. What's happening? Think of the aggregate social world as its own giant sphere, to which we secretly gravitate even in our dreams. Social gravity governs pretty much all our behavior in one degree or another. We live by habitual patterns responding in umpteen ways to social consensus, the expectations, sentiments, and judgments of others. And we operate mainly in assembly line time, much less in creative time. Time itself, now undeniably a fictional construct, loses integrity. Reality itself needs a road sign under construction. Pandemic seems to be happening to us and simultaneously to everyone else in the world. In a poetics view, we can become the active side of the conversation as opposed to passive victims of catastrophe. Poesis, or active making, has a job to do in pandemic space-time that seems without clear precedent. That too. It offers to teach mind to free up its center, its axis, to navigate a radically new environment. It teaches us being aware that we remake ourselves in the language we use and urges speaking in new language, not only new vocabulary, but syntax that's flexible in new ways. As with morphing gender consciousness, we keep needing new pronouns. We're in an altered pronominal state, and we're experiencing the growing pains of lingual diversity. Optimal poetic function in such a situation is to convert the conflicts and agonies into new powers of language, social organization, and global consciousness. And we need what Gregory Bateson called an ecology of mind. How can speaking for ourselves allow the world to reinvent itself in radical new balancing? In this thought experiment and reframing of language, the species is thinking itself and rethinking itself. Even the planet seems to be rethinking itself, ever more urgently, in a more aggressive posture. Environment is giving us feedback on our energetic abuses, and it's speaking to us in estranged tones of voice. If we're to be other than victims of its eruptive forces, we need to learn to dialogue in a different dynamic. Ecology of mind and language, eco-poetics, eco-proprioception, or sensing ourselves as global beings, the big sphere. It's not just about making art and poetry in known senses, but a poesis coming to its senses in unknown ways, a new linguality, a verbal processing that imagines the world other. Thank you.
Thank you, George. The thinking that goes into a planet, into a body, there's a lot there. Beautiful. I want to get into that later on. Thank you, George. Eli is a multimodal creator, scholar, and amateur mycologist, addressing intersections between bodies, language, technology, and system change. There's more about them in the chat, if you check the chat. Eli.
Hey there, I have like a multivalent setup, so give me like 2 seconds. To get that going. So, Edwin, can you turn off your audio? Amazing. No? Yep, that's it. All right. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of performance, some sound stuff. The light in my apartment apparently is not amazing. I practiced it earlier. So first of all, thank you so much to Edwin for having me, and thank you to all of the other like creative, brilliant people who've been part of tonight's event and of this whole series. It's really amazing. I'm going to be doing kind of like a multi-part ritual performance, and I would have loved to invite you to do it with me, but the time just won't allow it. So I have made a score that you can use, and we'll talk about that later in the chat that happens at the end of tonight's performance. So the work that I'm reading tonight is sort of inward facing, yes, because I'm using it as a transformational device. So it won't necessarily be the poems that I like the most, but you'll see where this is going. So run program, poem as transformational alchemical disruptor mechanism as opposed to object. Number 1, from Body Adi Adi 2016. Perhaps this city is giraffe, is an accumulation of ice cubes, torso, silhouette against the night sky, against the bright sky, so bright so that skin disappears, so much light that I am naked. Here, where can I take my gaze to be seen? Where will you speak to my bones? Where will you sing my organ song? In 2013, in a project for a speculative retro future, I produced mock-ups for something I called Perfect Poems by Future Form. The tagline for which was, language was then, sound is now. They offered a vision of the production of sonic sonnets as a consumer object derived by an analysis of the optimal physiological impact of sound waves moving through the body, understood as a vessel primarily for water. Today, again, a ritual that uses water as both literal substance and metaphor for transformation across the membranes of the body and the self as fluid, as simultaneously nonlinear and flowing along the meridians of the body. This has been an ongoing journey of sloughing and revisioning. Here is a short poem also from Ground, which, as I prepared to read it tonight, I realized it was written in Beacon, not far from where Edwin is, on the shores of the Hudson in like 2008. And you'll see the sort of lineage of these as I move into the ritual. Vastness infinite and infinitesimal grand of universal salt, and so to a universe I to myself sing, oh, molecular being, fire neurons dance unstable cells, even as I rest here. Body bits in constant motion, symphony of atomic movements. I am allegro al dente, in absolute stillness, surrounded by cicada river blue. I am fluid. I ever exchange and rearrange. A flesh and blood bone black hole I hold together. I implode, explode. And ahead, the water surface shimmers, titillated by wind, an excited ionic exultation. So too my cells shimmy and shake, wind passes, gulls call, sun warms. I am nothing and everything, never and now. All right, so moving in to ritual times. Ooh, I'm so excited, yes. All right, so moving into ritual here. We're gonna give you some internal life of a cell in the background. So I'm gonna go in and out a little bit. But what you've got behind me is what's actually going on in your body on the cellular level. This is like the inside of a single cell structure. So the building blocks for today's ritual are these. Volunteer audio, so field recordings from ambient environments and non-human allies. Auto-voiced and sounded tones and percussion, so things that are going to come from my body and also in a loop. And then a consideration of somatic, cellular, energetic relations, players, and processes in the bodies. So blood, lung, heart, oxygen, the thymus right here, producing T cells for the immune system, the lymphatic system, as blood's coming back from all the parts of your body back to the heart, cleaning you out like a mushroom, the skin as a minor immune organ, fascia, and bone marrow. This ritual proposes that the above, it's in a paper, but the things I just said to you together become mechanism for intention, articulation, stimulation, adaptation, growth, evolution, and resilience. That the movement, the sounding of the body, here in tandem with language, and therefore creating a neural pattern, creates rather than illustrates the somatic experience or tone. For instance, yes, as you hold your body like this, a posture that we associate with sort of giving up or a retreat, the body actually tells itself to retreat. Opening up the heart, opening up the shoulder, allows the chi to move in a way that makes you brave. So it actually has a correspondence. Okay, so without further ado, let's get this set up. For years, I slept closed, hands tight, like fists, toes curled, wound. A crab. The scared animal returns home, whether home is safe or frightening. Later, I found out I was both animal and also water, not only simile, but also self, same. We are slow stone, eroder, ground mover, rapids, typhoon, snowdrift, ice sheet, dew. A formal tendency to take the shape of our container shouldn't be construed as lack of spine. Aspiring to flow, my blood moves from heart to lungs, welcomes oxygen back and through again. Lymph and vein return through mycelial repair, stagnated by The world's detritus needs help finding its way. Wading other human waters, I drown, a little ecstatic, aware of overwhelm, softened to avoidances, a deluge of myself, invited in, working the room. The blood says yes, cooling at the root, fiery anchor. You are animal, boiling water. Welcome home, animal. Welcome home, animal. Welcome, water. Welcome, water. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. I'm going to see what Gina's doing. I'm going to pick up on the melody that we just heard. Is it moving? Is it moving? Is it moving? Oh, she. Oh, she. Oh, she. Oh, she. Oh, no. She. 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 Oh, she goes down. See. Oh, loud. But hear the paper. Hear the paper. If we could hear the paper writing itself on the wall, we would see the letters moving. If you squint your eyes, you can see that the body is a letter moving against a white page. And these are words that are forming and unforming quickly, briefly, intensely in our minds, in front of us. The letters are carrying the paper for once. The paper was tired of carrying the letters all this time, so now the letters have decided to help the paper. A-B-L-E-L-O-R-L-L-T-L-K-A-R-O. These are all letters that are hieroglyphs that are being formed. And now this is just a big Christine Wertheim experiments in autobiography, fusing graphics and text to explore the potentialities of the English tongue and the relationship between suppressed infantile rage and global violence. Christine Wertheim.
So, you're still, oh, okay. So, hi everybody, and hello, and it's lovely to be here with you all, and I love Edwin and I love the book, and so I'm going to play you a very short video. It's less than 3 minutes long. My plan had been to, I've been making these videos to go with live vocal performances, but of course I finished school on Friday when we had graduation and immediately came down with a throat illness. So I'm not up for performing today, I'm very sorry. So there is sound on the video. It was just the sound that was used to make the video. It isn't actually the sound that's meant to be there, but it's the sound there. So it's a work in progress. Can I share screen, Edwin?
There we go.
Okay. So just a second, I'll get it at the beginning. Can you see it? Can you, everyone see?
The body is not an organism.
Oh, sorry, stop.
Body is not an organism. The 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 body. Body, not an organism. Body, not an organism. Body, not an organism. Body, not an organism. The body is 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 not an organism.
Stop. So that was it. Thank you.
It's wonderful, Christine. We'll talk about it. Before we go, I guess Rodrigo Toscano is not here, unfortunately. Okay. All right. So George, you want to come back in?
Okay. All right. So I need to have the screen go back to me, and
I'm going to share it.
And then Susan Quasha is going to share. 1 second, not yet. Not
right?
Yet.
No.
Hello, Edwin. Yeah. No, we're
Yes.
not getting back to me. I'm sorry. Everybody else should have their audio off. But I'll explain what's happening, waiting for this to come, because I need the screen, because I'm reading 2 poems from this latest completed series of what I call preverbs, and they're done in collaboration with Susan Quasha's photographs. We do this as a daily practice. It's been going on for a long time, for a year and a half, and we've just completed the first complete book of about 250 of these photographs and poems. And so I want to have her photograph on the screen while the poem is occurring. Edwin, I only see you, I don't see the full screen. You're the full screen.
I've given you the sharing.
I know, but the full screen is on you.
I found a few locations for the sharing near you. The first one is the.
Can you not hear the share screen, George?
Maybe George changed to gallery view, upper right.
I'm not in gallery. Oh, maybe so.
That might help.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to speaker view. That didn't help. Why? Does anybody else have a?
You are on my full screen.
You have a little button at the bottom that says share screen. It's green. I think you press that.
Well, I do that for the picture, but first I want to get my full screen. I'm not
in speaker view. George wants to be in speaker view.
I'm in speaker view, but I want to be
he wants to be the central image.
You are on my screen.
Oh, okay, good. It wasn't on my screen. Okay, good. So let me just say that I'm about to shift to Susan. Turn this off 1 second. Okay. The book is the series is called Genius Foci, and this is poem 32, entitled Skull Side View. And there's a epigraph that says, "The sense of being lied to by everyone speaking drives mind to new levels of reserve. Voice heard on the edge of dream. This ghostly affair of believing in myself makes for vivid views. Fantasy is the mother of invention. Familiar life is the focus. Alien is an other norm. Identity, or this thriving organization, works too hard to see itself. Selves cluster. Body itself has alien norms. Nurture serves skull side. No brand, but stamped by sensing, thinks to enjoin. Life is a focus to focus. It gives us call to cluster selves. It says, serve yourself. You're by the cupful, hopeful. Never show enough, and it's never slow enough to get here in time. You feel the spark when you're not sure it's dark. Truth is what it speaks its mind to in uncreated brain, ever more incompossible. And if the left brain does not know what the right brain is thinking, vivid twos are always now in the making incommensurably enjoined. Okay, shifting the picture. Share, you hit share.
Okay, then go to full screen.
Okay. Poem 34, Underground Permission. What might mean the reliable unknown gift to be going on identity retreat? Poesis is a sign of its making it happen. World is next in line, and that's a fact. Flagged from afar's sky high in national dying fall. Save the date fast, 5, 10, 20, until a distant past floods the state like mantra. At the expense of, or as the expanse of, It's the matter shown through as you choose. Holding the dying in your heartland shoots from seed possible to plant grounded. Thinking in threads, in sounding strands of glory in retreat. In this projection, realization is I'm projected multiply in sources shaping, speaking. We is tracking striations in the make-up pretending self so gallantly streaming. The sentence goes off track to get its mind into the stutter. Poesis makes events with events, inside events, coming up visible, angling its action. Aware horses like changing riders midstream. Reflection turns true rivering to the light. Nature's not asking, it's telling. Symbol offers a chance for unending unpacking, stretching the story all the way out. Before and after into a reversal, in a retreat from identity. Pointing out instructions, situate experienced words by markers in timing. Who goes there, where no answers strum the streams and no where's there? Seeing recalls its dream time. Thank you. What had happened?
George, if you could unmute, share.
Yeah, okay, I don't know how to do this. Unshare, you have to unshare it. Oh, is that stopped?
Yeah.
Are we okay? Okay.
George, you talked a little bit about the observing, what did I write here? The situation of belief in a way. So there's something about what you're writing about, which is where the body's understanding of, in effect, its blankness or its desire to be blank of some sort. And last week you talked about gravity and how we're in this sense of free fall, which I thought was really interesting. Could you talk a little more about that? About how you're looking at this time that we're in? You equated that to astronauts finding their footing, in a way.
Say that again.
You equated that to astronauts finding their footing, or being comfortable in zero gravity, in a way.
Well, I'm talking about it as there's a learning curve. The learning curve is reorienting yourself according to the major gravitational pull of the moment. My argument is essentially that we're experiencing a change in social gravitational space, and we don't know how to orient in that space. So language is the way that we negotiate space and time much of the time, or a great deal of the time, and at least even in our own minds. We're reconstituting reality in the language that we're using to think with, to speak with, to be with. And so the process of reorientation, say, the training of an astronaut involves something using like a gyrosphere, where they learn to be in gravityless space, and they teach their bodies how to move without relying on gravity as the point of focus of your organ, or of your system, of your proprioceptive, your vestibular, and your autonomic systems. So what's the equivalent of that for our situation where we find ourselves in this degravitized social space, where what pulls us, what orients our sense of time, orients our sense of mental and physical orientation, what takes up that space? Artists have less trouble normally in these kinds of situations, I think, because they're used to being in imaginal time a good deal of the time. They're in creative time. They're not in assembly line time. We live in assembly line time. One thing happens after the other in order to produce a given result known in advance. That's not the situation in a great deal of how artists work. But now everybody's in that space. everybody's in the space of, and artists are in it all the time. So they're also more or less in the same boat. They don't have their exhibitions and their social gatherings and all that. So
then, Eli, this idea of this, you're working with
Edwin. When you speak, there's static coming.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like a shh sound. So I'm not sure what that is.
Oh. A little better?
Not really.
No, it's no.
I'm being stumped. 2, 3, 4. No.
It's like in the background, like a shh.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Well, I was curious about. Can you hear, Eli? Can you hear me at all?
Yeah, we can hear what you're saying. There's just like a static that's buzzing.
There's an annoying layer to my method. Yes.
There's a ghost in the machine. It's fine. It doesn't really bother me.
This idea of programming, and the body as the body torso as a program and as a single cell organism. I thought there was an interesting connection there with this sense of finding where we're landing or where we are. Can you talk a little bit about your ritual making and how that helps you get underneath the layers?
Yeah, sure. Well, you want to turn off your audio?
Yes.
So for me, I've spent a lot of the last, like, let's say 4 to 5 years in particular, like working through immune problems, like immune chronic illnesses that were the result of like CPTSD and trauma, and in finding those roots in myself and finding sort of like the allopathic mechanisms of healing to be really like not working, and sort of therapeutic situations. Like I ended up doing a ton of research around somatics, which I was already working with through sort of like dance and performance, and then also through kind of like really starting to get engaged in understanding. We're seeing someone screen right now. All right, so yeah, so for me, like somatic ritual became a really big way of sort of like getting back in a body that in many ways I found had been, I really found it had kind of like been disembodied. I had really become really disconnected from myself, and really unaware of the ways in which kind of my conditional adaptive like responses to my own environment, and then what I started really understanding as being like structural trauma, right, which I think is part of the problem with the way that we have therapy, right? So I started seeing like the patterns of trauma that were happening personally and that we describe happening interpersonally as things that were actually happening structurally. And so I'm someone who's often like trying to kind of make change in my community, and I often sort of found that people would be really open sort of narratively, but that actually when it came to really engaging, that there was a resistance. And because I was now looking through a trauma lens, I started to understand that resistance as probably being trauma oriented and seated. And so I started, instead of working through sort of narrative of sort of like trying to convince people to do something, I started instead to enter into those conversations through the body. And so to like help people understand the way in which their kind of fears have been, and the way that they're disembodied is actually like institutionally learned, like in the classroom, especially as a site of sort of like enlightenment thinking, where the mind body has been told to like, you know, the sort of, you know, enlightenment methodology, just Cartesian sort of thought, like you must repress your body, right? So all of these ways in which we have become separated from our own intelligence, right? I just made a video about this the other day, but like something that I'd love to bring up is like Moshe Feldenkrais, and you guys, some people will know the Feldenkrais method. Like something that he said was that humans, of like all animals, have like the special ability to actually go wrong in like evolving and learning their own abilities, right? So like animals in general will learn the capacities that they have because like they're programmed, it's like phylogenetic evolution as opposed to ontogenetic. Like we're ontogenetic, so meaning like, you know, you'll see that ontology root in there, meaning like if we don't have the right conditions, you're not actually going to know anything about your body, which is actually really fascinating when you think about it. And so what Feldenkrais was kind of saying is like there's a way to reprogram through like going into your muscle memory and sort of like rewriting, because we're neuroplastic, thank God, and actually neurological material lives in your entire body. So as you start to kind of go through the body and learn the different systems, you can utilize those areas to actually start reprogramming your brain. And just as George said also, I think we're sort of working with some of the same concepts here, like language becomes the mediator of that. And so the capacity to utilize and articulate these concepts of the body, or even to know something as simple as that, like the lymphatic system, right? Like as your blood goes through the cycles of sort of like being oxygenated by the lungs, going back through the heart, going out through the arteries, right? We don't usually even think blood is flowing through artery and vein, to the entire body arterially with a super fast pump, and then getting to everywhere in the body, and then attempting to make its way back to the heart slower. Veins don't have a pump like the arteries do, going back through the limbs, which are trying to like clean you up, which is why I think about the lymph as kind of like a mushroom, right? And so actually as the poor blood is trying to like make its way back our like fucked up lymphs, let's say, like all this like detritus, sort of like talking about sort of the detritus of the everyday, are like in the limbs, and that's, you get all this stagnation, right? So like if you're working with something like TCM or Chinese medicine, you can literally see on my chest right now, I was realizing that like I did some Qigong movements, right? Like when you're doing this is you working with the chi of Qi. It's like in your sort of lower chakras, and it's like helps you move it through the body. I didn't calm any of that down. Did a lot of thymus pounding, and so my Qi is moving like 1,000,000 miles an hour right now. But meaning sometimes it needs help to move through those stagnant places, right? It's not necessarily going to happen on its own. So as you start to be able to like kind of articulate, oh, this is what the blood is doing. It's picking up oxygen. You know, like we've really been taught to be ignorant about our machines like that we're in. You know, we've really been taught to distrust the intelligence that like the signals that we get from our bodies. And we've been told like either our impulses are bad, sinful, wrong, you know, and to trust these outside experts. But really, you have the most intelligence of anyone. You spend all this time every day with your body. And so as we start to be able to like bring the language about the body in and then work with movement, you can like utilizing a combination of visualization, sound, touch, you know, you know, what I was doing like with this is like, you can sweep your lymphs. You guys are welcome to try it. You don't even have to like actually touch your body, but knowing that like your blood is moving back from everywhere in your body back towards your heart, stimulating and kind of reminding your body that that's happening through like a sweeping motion. You can do it all the way from the root to your head, and knowing that it's kind of coming back to the heart center, you can help that movement happen, right? And like knowing it and being able to sort of like move sound and move energy through the body, I've found to be like transformative. It's literally like the thing that I'm spending the most time doing during quarantine, because, you know, the disruptor mechanism protocol that like this is part of for me has been something I've been working on for a couple of years, about kind of like exactly what you said, George. It's funny. I also use this word, the idea of reorientation, like a total reorientation around the body, around language, around the ways that we describe and understand our world is really going to be necessary to be able to make change. And I don't think we can really make any of that change without working on the body, because the body will continue to have automatic responses, automatic nervous system responses in particular, that come from the material in the body that is sort of automatic, right? That comes from patterns of fear. But like when you feel fear, your body thinks it's being chased by a bear, right? And so like the difference between thinking that you're being chased by a bear and understanding that you're having a fear response to something that may have been dangerous for you before, but you, because you are a human and not a different kind of animal, actually have the capacity to teach your body that that is a different kind of situation, and you do not have to continue to feel that response. We all have the capacity to do that kind of learning, and it's that kind of like level of discernment that will allow us to move past. I mean, we see in politics and culture all the time, like people like just coming at it with the nervous system response. Like almost every single person in politics right now is like super highly reactionary. And like, if you think of them as animal bodies, as opposed to like assuming that people have the capacity to actually like deal with their their nervous system response, then you start to see something else happening, right? Working with those people on the nervous system level is like, oh, everyone's in trauma, and we need to work on this and work on our own kind of even our anger response so that we can help others not avoid. Sorry, I totally went off on a tangent. Obviously, I could talk about this for a very long time.
Actually, that was great.
All right. Thank you. So that the awareness and the treatment of the self as an intelligent being brings me to Christine. So Christine, you mentioned in the chat, and actually I was going to ask you about this in your video with your the imagery that you were creating based on what constitutes a mask or a reshaping of the organism called the body or the face or the humanness. Where you kind of enter into that, but also how that applies to, like, as you're saying, like our meaning America's sense of a place vis-a-vis the world, and how you sort of touched on that on your chat. Could you please chime in?
I'm not sure what you're asking me, Edwin, but
I'm not either, but
I will say one little polemical statement, and then I'll come back to our general topic. As I said in the chat, there are 11 million people on the verge of starvation in Yemen, if they haven't actually tipped over already. There's another at least 3 million in the same state who might also have tipped in South Sudan, and there's more than 6 million people in Syria who are completely homeless and also on the verge of starvation in May the last week or two. So they say that in totality, there are 60 million people in the world today on the verge of starvation, which is like the entirety of a European country. I'm not saying COVID is not something we should take seriously. I'm not saying it's something that we should not do something about and be responsible about. But I do think that in comparison to world problems, it's only happening to us what we consider usually happens to much poorer people. And so I'm failing to get COVID fever, as it were. I don't think our times are as altered as people say. I think it's just what's happening to us very privileged people is what happens all in poorer countries. Having said that, what can I say about my performance? I don't know. I started playing a couple of weeks ago. I have this long-going crochet project, and I've got lots of bits of leftover crochet. And one day, you know, because everybody's wearing masks now, I just sort of cut a hole in one of my pieces of crochet and thought, oh, that'd be nice as a mask. So I put it on, and then I suddenly realized, I said, how can I film myself? And I suddenly realized Zoom is an excellent tool for making, you know, videos of yourself. You just put yourself in a Zoom meeting and stand in front of the camera and perform. And then you just put it in something like QuickTime and you can edit it. So that's what I've been playing around with in my COVID home alone time, which is very amusing to me, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. I don't know if it has deep, meaningful significance. I do, in fact, agree with everything that Eli said. I don't believe that there will be a change of world mentality until we also have a change of relationship with our bodies. I don't have a lot to say. I mean, I do believe that. I just don't want to.
Yeah, I agree with that too. The video that I showed, I was trying to work with the machinery that we have. In this case, Zoom, and in this case, these grids that we have in front of us. So I do that in my design, where it's like working with the machinery or the structure to figure out the solution. It happens in language also. What is in the language that makes it become the thing that it needs to be? And sometimes I don't know the answer until I explore underneath what I'm looking at. So the video that I showed was exploring the grid system and the breakdown and how we're compartmentalized as humans and as watchers who are watching each other at the same time. There's other structures within the video that have an aesthetic reason for me, but the overall idea is to kind of work with the structure that you're given and see if there's an answer within that structure, and how that allows maybe another layer that you didn't expect. I mean, it happens in poetry a lot, where you're working on a poem and you're trying to figure out its direction or what it means to you, and in the process you're shifting lines around and you're creating and you're doing this alchemical thing, which is very body-centric. It's very body-oriented, how we are trying to figure out what language is important to us and how important that message is to convey, to bring meaning to somebody else, to meet this other structure out here. So this goes to what everybody's been talking about today, where we are looking to see where we land, but also how, where are we compared to everybody else? Where are we in our own work, you know? So that's where all that comes from. That was a little bit of an explanation for that video. We're gonna probably do a formal goodbye soon, and then we'll keep talking. But anybody have any? George, you want to have one final one? Anything else to add?
Well, no, not especially at this point. But when you talk about the body or something else, there really isn't any option to be without the body. But the question is the quality of attention that we give it and the quality of attention we give language. So to me, language and body are extremely closely woven, and really they're non-separate. The question is what kind of attention we can give it. And my basic feeling is that poetic process, which is language reinventing itself as in a going awareness that is adapting to a situation as it moves, that is an opening into how we can give our attention to what language is capable of. I think poetry, in that sense, is essentially an instructive medium. It restructures the brain. It alters how the mind plays its process out in the body. So what Eli was saying is a very interesting journey through the view that Feldenkrais has, which is that you alter even the autonomic system, which goes on automatic. We're basically on automatic on most of the things that we do. And the possibility is to shift that to a different kind of awareness. In that kind of awareness, you get what I call eco-proprioception, which is where you understand that you're actually non-separate from your environment. It's not just a concept. You're interacting with your environment in extremely complex and subtle ways, but you're not aware of that because the frames in which we define reality don't allow that view to be very active. Some people activate it by particular means. Feldenkrais offered a lot of particular systems for activating ways of being aware that are consequential in the habits of the body. They alter the habits of the body. And that's really happening all the time, but it's not happening consciously. It's happening by kind of automatic response patterns that have been learned under difficult circumstances called life. You know, most of your patterns were learned at a time when you didn't know there was such a thing as a pattern or a habit. You just did what you had to do to survive. And we should be grateful to those patterns because they got us here. We survived because of them. They got us through tough situations. The problem is they stuck around too long and they became habits that interwove with the totality of how we respond to the world, and we just don't know that it's happening. So.
Oh my God, Rodrigo is here. He just
Oh, really?
Yeah, he just said hi in the chat. What's up, Rodrigo?
Oh.
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, there you are. Hey, man.
Hey, buddy.
I just started working my ass off. Sorry. Barely made it. Are we done? Or, I mean, I don't know.
Well, we were sort of done, but you're here, so you can...
One poem, or?
Absolutely, yes.
It's kind of on topic. I really like, you know, what was being said here in the last few moments, but I'll read something, if that's okay.
Yes.
Let me just get it out of my bag here. Hang on.
While you do that, Gina, can you hear me? Gina, I can't unmute you. Gina?
There we go.
Hey.
You can hear me now.
We can hear you a little bit. Can you come to the camera and talk a little bit?
Sure.
We're gonna hear from Rodrigo in a minute, but can you talk a little bit about your approach to language and what you've been doing tonight?
My approach to language and what I've been doing tonight. I've been listening.
Yes.
I've been listening and moving about and finding metaphor, which is what dance does with language, which is what I think dance does with language, is find metaphor in language and translate it, transcribe it, transform it, transliterate it, traduce it into a gesture, action, movement, image, and music. So that's what dance is. So everything that you all are saying, be it poetic or clinical or imagistic or angst-ridden, I just fall in, basically.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We'll come back to you in a minute. We're going to hear from Rodrigo now.
Okie dokie.
Everybody.
You can keep moving if you want.
Oh,
Rodrigo.
okay, I'm moving.
I kind of see this vibe is kind of going here about language and kind of around this whole COVID thing. I got a little piece here. This one's called
Rodrigo, a little closer to the microphone.
Yeah, are we better?
Yep.
Here?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So this one's called The Charm and the Dread. The meditation in the time of COVID-19.
Edwin, mute yourself.
Take a deep breath in. Take a deep breath out. In. Out. There is no past. There is no future. There is only now. There is only now. Trees are hilarious. Grass is hilarious. The charm of roots, the charm of clouds, the charm of that faucet that's leaking again. A Dublin accent, how the fuck that get in higher? Take a deep breath in. Deep breath out. Welcome to China. Floating flowers in air. The crimson yellow of no past. The charcoal pink of no future. Trees don't select flight seats at the time of purchase. Grass doesn't need to know the hotel checkout time. Oceans, oceans, oceans. Oceans. Breathe in. Hold your breath. Don't let it out. Hold your breath. Sing New York, New York in your chest. Knees clacking together. Release your breath. Welcome to Bourbon Street. There is only now. ¿Dónde está la cantina de tequila? Oceans. 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 The charm of a medevac helicopter. The dread of a failed meditation. The charm of another ambulance. The dread of a failed meditation. The charm of a virus on your fingertip. The dread of a failed meditation. The charm of a curved graph line. The dread of a failed meditation. Take a deep breath in. Deep breath out. Two petals. An emerald white of no past. A lavender orange of no future. There is only now. Blue with a hint of silver. Oceans. Oceans. The last puddle on your street. The power of a cat finding it. The last flower of a hibiscus plant. The power of a worm chomping it down. That damn rooster again. The rooster again. The rooster. Rooster. Roo. Stir. Welcome to Antarctica. Adonde a stop, breathe in. Icebergs. 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 Nobody. Nobody. Nobody told you to stop breathing. Nobody told you to start breathing. Nobody told you stop goofing. Nobody told you to stop regarding that leaky faucet. Droplets, one by one, is music. Birds, one by one, is music. The clouds are hamming it up. Your heart is hamming it up. Your lungs are hamming it up. Your belly is hamming it up. Your tongue is hamming it up. Your toes are hilarious. Your toes have always been hilarious. Night sky, stars. Night sky, stars. Night sky, stars.
Rodrigo, that was so beautiful. You say that you're working on the there's a COVID-19 effort nationwide for back to work safety procedures for essential workers.
Yeah.
You're involved with that, and your poem is very much connected to that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, besides being a sort of, what you call civilian and having to deal with this whole thing, is, I'm just kind of involved in it at the level of, I'm working with the NIEHS, the National Institute of Environmental Health Science, directly with them, and what we're doing is we're building models for different industries on how to get people safely back to work, if at all. And yeah, so I've been into this since the beginning of it. I've worked a lot with the Native American tribes in the Northwest. That's been one of my main tasks. Immigrant worker centers across the country. So yeah, no rest here in that sense, but it's wonderful to be here with everybody. I almost missed this, I have to say.
I'm glad you're here. Rodrigo, where do you find yourself? I mean, your poem captured a language in a very sparse manner where we're sort of going down this trajectory, and along the way, we're sort of looking at something quote unquote real, but then it comes back to the self. So I'm curious about how you find. Yeah.
No, I don't know. When you're in deep, like into these governmental institutions, when you're on these webinars that I'm on with the CDC, NIH, unions, and all this stuff, curiously, at the highest levels, at the end of many of these meetings and these talks, they do these guided meditations, kind of like, breathe in, breathe out. They kind of get people to sort of, mellow out after these intense talks. And that piece and many others like it, I rather than sort of go through the meditation, I was typing my own, I was banking off of what was being said, and a lot of the sort of interjections, the sort of somewhat comedic interjections, is not only sort of typically me, but it's really meant to sort of, sort of create an aesthetic distance from that guided meditation, so you don't think that you're actually, especially on a call like that, part of the thing itself. I don't know. It's just my way of doing things. Hey, there's Bob Holman.
Well, there's also the thing about like a guide, like we're in this guided reality. Like let me show you how to do this or that. And your piece, and I write, I think we work with that a bit, the hierarchy of information, and how that, am I intelligent enough in my body to accept that, or to kind of like repurpose it for my own worth, self-worth. So it's interesting, like I can imagine you sitting in those rooms and going somewhere else totally, but when are we not guided? Or how do we reflect on what guides us or doesn't guide us?
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. The thing with the flesh and mind, and how there's a parallax there that I think we deal with, especially I think during times of crisis like this, where we're really talking about health and not only mental but physical, and so there's that kind of you might say double negativity, where you assert something as sort of being healthy, but then you realize that it's part of the, a symptom of also being assailed or sort of, coming undone yourself. I think that's the thing. That's the most honest poem as I can have is that's why, I thought a lot about those lines about, which one's going to be the charm and which one's going to be the dread, right? So why would I say that the charm of a virus on your fingertip? I thought about it for a minute, should that be the dread? And so the more that I changed those lines, it became apparent to me that in the sort of bigger life sense, in the most expansive thing we can think about it, that there is a sort of cosmic charm to everything. The dread is really us, understandably so.
Beautifully put. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
We're going to. This is our official ending, but we're all sticking around because we never end. We always continue. We want to thank you all for coming by. I want to thank Rodrigo, who just got right in there at the end there. Eli, Christine Wertheim, George, Quasha. Come back tomorrow for the last show. Thank you, and that's the ending. So now we can talk. Thank you all for coming by. Rodrigo, you made it, man.
Early.